Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemaier Games, and today, as I do twice a year, I am going to list my top 10 favorite games of all time as of right now. So right now is August 2021. The last time I did this list was February. I usually do these in February and August. I should mention that if you're new to this channel or you don't know, I run a company called Stonemaier Games. I run a publishing company, and sometimes I include our games on these top 10 lists, but not my favorite game top 10 list. Even though some of our games definitely would be in that list, I feel like it's just too much bias for me to put one of our games on this list. So these will be games. Stonemaier games are not eligible for this list. I wanted to lead off by saying that. Also, I want to say that typically these games are games that I'm really eager to get to the table on an ongoing basis. And that generally means that campaign games are not on these lists. Or even the types of games that you play once and then you're done with them. Even though I really do enjoy some of those games, like Time Stories. I really enjoyed Sleeping Gods from earlier this year. Clank Legacy is a wonderful legacy game. I really enjoyed these legacy games, these campaign games. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel right for these lists. But I have other games. If you want to check out my top 10 favorite campaign games, there's a separate list for that. I did ask Stonemaier ambassadors to let me know their number one favorite game of all time right now. So these are volunteers for Stonemaier Games, and I'll rattle off a long list right now of the various games that were mentioned more than once. So we have a lot of ambassadors. These are the games that were mentioned more than once. Seven Wonders Duel, A Feast for Odin, Anachrony, Arkham Horror LCG, Battlestar Galactica, Brass Birmingham, Carcassonne, Castles of Burgundy, Caverna, Concordia, Dominion, Eclipse, Euphoria, Glen More, Gloomhaven, Great Western Trail, It's a Wonderful World, Kingdom Death Monster, Lords of Waterdeep, Magic the Gathering, Marvel Legendary, On Mars, Orleans, Pandemic Legacy Season 1, Power Grid, Race for the Galaxy, Root, Scythe, Spirit Island, Splendor, Star Wars Rebellion, Time Stories, Tapestry, Teotihuacan, Terra Mystica, Terraforming Mars, Through the Ages, Too Many Bones, Twilight Imperium, Tzolk'in, Viticulture, Wingspan, and Yokohama. Again, those are the ambassador picks. Those are not the games that I picked for my list. Or maybe not necessarily. Some of them might be on there. I narrowed my list, so I basically looked at all the games that I've done many top 10 videos over the years on various topics. I looked at various themes, various mechanisms, and I looked at all of those lists, and I looked at the games that had been ranked number 1 and number 2, and those were the games that were eligible for this list. And I narrowed it down to 21 games, and then there were 11 here, I believe 10 or 11, that didn't quite make the cut for the top 10. But these are games that I truly love. On any given day, these could be in my top 10. So these honorable mentions are Seven Wonders Duel, Dice Miner, the newest addition to the list, Dice Miner. I could see this making the top 10 list later, but it's very new right now. I'm still trying to figure out if it's a long-term favorite or just a favorite right now. But yeah, Dice Miner, Architects of the West Kingdom, Just One, Clank, Glen More II, Lords of Waterdeep, Orleans, Russian Railroads, Shards of Infinity, and Terra Mystica. You might recognize some games on that list that have been in the top 10, but they're not in the top 10 today. So let's jump into the list. The first one is a game that I don't own, but it is a game I truly love, and that is Space Base. Space Base is a game where you are creating a tableau of cards that correspond with numbers, and those numbers are dice that you are rolling, or you and the other players are rolling. So on any player's turn, they're going to roll some dice, and you get to check to see if any of those dice correspond with cards that you have. Certain cards apply when it's not your turn. All cards apply when it is your turn. And so you're always involved even when it's not your turn. And when it is your turn, because you're guaranteed to roll something that you have, it's great. You can choose to activate both of the dice. So if the 1 and a 5 are rolled, I can choose to activate all of my number 1s and all of my number 5s, or I can choose to activate my 6. I can add the numbers together and activate that 6. So it's a really nice mechanism. You're involved on every player's turn. That feels really good. And I have fun building the engine in Space Base. And it was on my comfort games list because it's just fun to just ease into and play Space Base. But it feels good every time I play. I just really love this game. And if I have a favorite mechanism in it off the top of my head, it would be that you were involved in every player's turn. There's very little downtime in this game. That is Space Base, my number 10. My number 9 is Fantasy Realms. I love this game so much that I designed a heavier version of it called Red Rising. Fantasy Realms is a game where you are crafting a hand of cards. You start out with a hand of cards that is potentially really good or potentially not all that good. And over the course of the game, you are getting rid of cards and adding cards to your hand so that you have a very strong hand at the end of the game, hopefully full of combos of cards that work really well together. It just feels good. It's a very rewarding game. Everything you get is good. There are some penalties in the game, but it's fun to build around those cards. And I love that you just start out with a hand of awesome stuff, and it's up to you to combo those things together or find the right cards to combo with what you start out with to have the best hand at the end of the game. This is, I think, the most filler of the games on this list, but that's okay. I really, really enjoyed Fantasy Realms. I enjoy the combos in it. It feels so good to play. I love this game. That's number 9, Fantasy Realms. At number 8, we have Mysterium Park. This is one of my favorite cooperative games. This is a game where a player has died, and that player is going to communicate how they were killed, or where they were killed, and who killed them at this carnival, this kind of creepy carnival, to the other players, working together cooperatively. And the way they communicate is by showing off these kind of weird, spooky dream cards. They hand these out to the other players so the other players can try to figure out where they were murdered and who murdered them. I won't show you exactly how the setup of this game works, but you've probably heard of Mysterium, which is its big brother. It's the original game. The setup for this game is so much easier to get into Mysterium Park that I just love getting to the table. It makes it so much easier to get this game to the table. But I love this cooperative element, the slightly asymmetric cooperative element, where we have one player who knows everything and they're trying to communicate everything to the other players who can freely communicate with each other, but all they had to go by are these creepy illustrations that the ghost player, the spirit player, has given them. Super easy to teach, super easy to play, and I just love that imbalance of information in the game, that limited information. Mysterium Park number 8 ties a little bit into my number 7 because it's another limited information cooperative game, The Mind. I just played The Mind again the other day. I love how easy it is to get this game to the table because the rules are so simple. All you were doing in The Mind is picking a card from your hand, and really there's no turns even. You're just trying to play cards in ascending order without any other communication with the other players. That's the whole game. That's all you're trying to do. But I particularly love how it ramps up. I did a video recently about ramping complexity. And I love in the first round of The Mind, each player only has one card. And you try to play those cards in the right order. And the next round, you shuffle all the cards back together and you get 2 cards. And you have to play those cards in the right order simultaneously with other players. And then 3 cards and so on. So it really escalates from round to round. And you have this feeling of these little burst of accomplishment. You've accomplished round 1. You've accomplished round 2. You're still alive. You've done that in round 3. And then you can tell it's getting harder and harder, but you're getting better and better. You're getting into the flow of the game with the other players. I love how The Mind ramps up, how it builds and builds from round to round. And I love introducing this to new players, especially new gamers, but also it's fun to play with experienced gamers as well. It's just a fun game to get to the table. I really, really love The Mind. That's why it is my number 7 game on this list. My number 6 game is kind of the opposite of The Mind. It's a much heavier game, and that is competitive game, not cooperative. That is the Isle of Cats. This is a polyomino game where you are drafting cards and then using those cards to gain these polyomino cat tiles to fill up your ship. Everybody has a slightly different ship that you're trying to fill up with these tiles. And you get some other types of tiles along the way. The game flows so well, and it is so satisfying to get these cats and these different goals. There are these core goals in the game that you're trying to get based on where you put different colors of cats next to each other and whatnot, with rats that you're covering up on your ship. But you also get goals that you're drafting throughout the game. A little bit like maybe Terraforming Mars, a little bit like that, but a slightly lighter version of it. But I love how the Isle of Cats flows. I love the theme. I love the polyomino puzzle of piecing these puzzle pieces together. And it's a very rewarding game because every round you're getting this big income of fish, these fish tokens that you're getting. You get them every round. You get a whole bunch of them, and you get to spend them over the course of the round and even keep extra fish from round to round. I love it on all player counts. I played it, not all player. I played it at 2, 3, and 4. I love those player counts, and I love it enough that I get the expansion. It's on the way from Kickstarter. That doesn't always happen with me. I can love a game and not care about the expansion because I love the core game so much. But this is a game where I love the core game so much, and I want to see what the kittens do in the expansion, the other things that the expansion does. So that is the Isle of Cats, my number 6 favorite game right now. My number 5 favorite game I don't own, but I do love this game, and it is Ra. Ra is one of my favorite push your luck games. It's one of my favorite auction games. It has a brilliant auction mechanism where you don't have currency in this game. There is money, but money is the points in the game. Instead, you have generally 3 or 4 tiles, depending on the player count, that have numbers on them. I believe it's 1 through maybe 13, 12 or 13. and this is your currency to play with. And so whenever you are bidding on an auction, you get to choose one of those tiles and put it in front of you and say, okay, I'm using my 8 tile to bid on this auction. There's only one 8 tile in the whole game, so there's no tiebreakers or anything like that. There's one 8 tile. If that is the highest bid, you win the auction. If not, you're out of the auction. But as part of the auction, if I win the auction with that 8 tile, part of the auction is that there's a tile in the middle of the table already from the previous auction, say a 5, and I gain that tile, and that is one of my tiles for the next round in the game. So the 8 that I spent goes to the middle of the board, and the 5 comes off to the side on my part of the board face down, and that is one of the tiles that I have to bid with over the next round, in the next round of the game. So that's part of it. That's one of the things that you're gaining in the auction. The other thing are these the set collection tiles that you're gaining, and this is where you can push your luck a little bit, because any auction can be started at any given time. Sometimes it's player controlled. Sometimes there's a random tile, a raw tile comes up, and that just starts an auction automatically. But there's this long row of spaces where raw tiles can go. And so you could draw a bunch of tiles out of the bag, one player at a time, drawing one tile, adding to this auction row to make a really, really big auction. And that can feel really good. You're pushing your luck into this bigger and bigger auction. But there are bad tiles that can be added to that auction row. So you don't really know, am I pushing my luck too far and risking that a bad tile is added to this auction? You can even push it so far that the round ends. You have too many raw tiles, the round just ends. You don't even get the bid on these tiles that you've accumulated. I love that push your luck. I love the auction element. The set collection the game does set collection beautifully, and this auction element. It's just I am always excited to get raw to the table, and that's why it's my number 5 favorite game right now. And number 4, I have Role Player. Role Player is a game where all you are doing is building a D&D style character in a slightly abstract way. You're using these dice to create different abilities and activate different abilities, but the theme is really well integrated into this game as well. As abstract as that one core mechanism is with the dice, everything else is so thematic in Role Player. But I also love the puzzle of the dice. I love trying to put the colors of the dice in the right place. I love trying to get the right numbers on the dice. You have to get the exact number shown in each of the rows for the different abilities. I love moving your alignment around. So many different interesting puzzly elements here. And the game just flows so well. There's this dice draft that happens, and then you get to buy a card depending on your order in the dice draft. And yeah, I just love the core element. A lot of people, you might hear them say, oh, you got to get the expansion with Role Player because you want to do, in the expansions, you get to do stuff with your character. But I love the focus of the game. The game just said, we want to make this a fun game about building a character. And that's what it is. It's a really, really incredible fun game about building character. I can't wait actually this is another game with an expansion that I'm excited about. Actually, it's kind of a separate game. It's Role Player Adventures. But you can bring a character from Role Player into the Role Player Adventures game, which I'm really excited to do. Every time I play Role Player, I take a photo at the end of the game to remember what my character was, and I'll go back and look at those photos and pick one when Role Player Adventures arrives, so I can use that character, or one of those characters in Role Player Adventures. But I love this game. I really, really love this game, and that's why it is the number 4 game on my list. I don't own the number 3 game on my list. That is the Quacks of Quedlinburg. A friend of mine has a really nice decked out copy, but whenever he wants to get to the table, I love getting Quacks to the table. Quacks is another push your luck game. I really, really love push your luck, but it's also bag building. I love deck building. I love bag building. And in Quacks, you are building this bag of ingredients, very thematic game, this bag of this cauldron, essentially, of ingredients. And you're pulling these tokens out of the bag, pushing your luck, and filling up your cauldron with these various ingredients. I guess the bag isn't the cauldron. You're putting the ingredients into the cauldron and hoping to create an amazing potion as a result. Basically get more points. The one thing I love that I think that elevates Quacks over many other push your luck games is that even if you push your luck too far, you still get either the currency to spend to buy more tokens, or you get points. You choose one or the other based on where you finished, where you busted on the track. If you don't bust, though, then you get both. You get the points and the currency. So it feels good even if you bust. And early in the game, points don't matter all that much. At the end of the game, coins don't matter. Currency doesn't matter all that much. So it's one of these games where the stakes are high every round. You don't want to bust. There's a reason not to bust, but it doesn't feel that bad if you do bust. Beyond that, I love the engine building. I love the push your luck. I really, really love the Quacks of Quedlinburg. That's my number 3. At number 2, I have Magic the Gathering. Magic is one of the games that I've played the longest. I've played it since I was 13. Took some breaks over the years. Played online primarily for a while. Now I primarily just, whenever a new set comes out, I buy a draft set and I just draft it with my friends. That's what we're going to do with the Forgotten Realms set in the very near future. But yeah, I love getting together for Magic Draft. I love the sense of discovery that you get from opening these packs and drafting and passing these cards around, picking the ones, crafting a deck that's best for you. Learning about that deck as you play one game after another. We usually play one game against each other player. And I love having these memorable moments in these games in Magic where you, like in the last draft I played, I put this very powerful card with a very bad penalty into it in the deck, a card called Eater of Days in my deck. And it just created these really wonderful, memorable moments whenever I saw that card, whenever I got to play it, whenever it got to the table. There are downsides to Magic. Yes, there's mana screw. Yes, that can happen. It can suck. But I think the pros of Magic, the pros of doing a casual Magic draft from time to time, as I do, far outweigh those moments of mana screw. And when we play casually, we do friendly mulligans. We do mulligans until you have a decent hand, and then we play, because it's a lot more fun to play Magic when you're not getting mana screwed. But yeah, it's just, I love the game. I love the ingenuity, the themes, the sets, the new mechanisms, the new keywords that come out. I just have a ton of I have a blast with it. So Magic the Gathering is my number 2 favorite game right now. Last at number 1, this is a new game on these top 10 lists. That is Dune Imperium. I love Dune Imperium. A little surprised by how light the box is. It really isn't that heavy of a box, but there's so much in this box. So many unique cards. In fact, I mentioned this in Magic. In Magic, you often have a card in your deck that you might build the deck around a little bit, and it's really exciting to have that card come up. But your deck is a lot smaller in Dune Imperium, and so when you have one of those cards that you build your deck around in Dune Imperium, you're going to have that card come up quite often. And that feels amazing in Dune Imperium, to buy an expensive card early in the game and then craft your deck entirely around that card and have that card come up time and time again, have that character from the world of Dune come up time and time again. So I love that deck building side of the game. I also love the worker placement, though. The worker placement is really satisfying. You get to move it. It's a very rewarding worker placement game where you're always getting more and better stuff. Based on where you're placing, you're moving up these tracks to gain influence in different factions. And then all that is often leading at the end of the round to combat. There's a shared combat pool at the end of each round where you are fighting against any other players who have decided to engage in that combat. And that creates some really nice, memorable moments in the game. Some nice moments of tension too, because that's the one area of the game where there's some secrecy involved in these intrigue cards that happen that you can get and you can play in that stage. You can play them in other stages too, but a lot of them are built around combat. But man, I want to bring this game to every game night because I'm happy to play Dune Imperium every time we have a game night. I am excited about the expansion, but I still feel like there's so much to be explored in the core game, including using the different asymmetric characters, which I use in every game, but I haven't played them all yet. And just going through and because like I said at the beginning, every time I play Dune Imperium, I typically end up building around a certain card or a certain couple of cards, and so even just that element feels so different and feels so unique, especially compared to other deck building games where you just may not see that card as much. You may have a really, really big deck, and so each individual card doesn't matter as much. But in Dune Imperium, each individual card matters a ton. And even in your starting hand or your starting deck, there's pretty much all good stuff. You need all that stuff in the deck. There's stuff that you can call out. You can trash some cards, but there's no real dead weight at the beginning of the game. I love this game. I love this game so much. I'm so glad they designed this game, and I've been truly loving it over the last 8 to 9 months. And so this is the first time it's appearing on a best games list. I felt it was too new to put it on February's list, but it has already withstood the test of time over the last 6 months since February. And Dune Imperium is now my number 1 game of all time, as of right now, August 2021. I'd love to hear what your top 3, your top 10, your number 1 favorite game of all time is right now. If you have a game that you were just always excited to get to the table right now, what is that game? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments, or your thoughts on any of the games that I mentioned here in my top 10 list or my honorable mentions list. Thanks.